Here's the thing about a hoarder house. It has a smell before it has a smell. You pull up to the curb and you're still in the truck, windows up, radio going, and you already know something about how the light sits in the windows. The curtains have gone the color of weak tea, and they're pressed flat to the glass because there's stuff shoved up behind them. The gutters have a little garden growing in them. There's a hose coiled on the lawn that's been there so long, the grass grew over it, and it looks like a snake half buried in green carpet. Then you crack the door, and it hits you from across the yard. I've been doing this 13 years. Second chance cleanouts. And yeah, I know how the name lands. Hollis picked it. Hollis is 61, hospital corpsman in the Navy, laugh like a chainsaw that won't turn over, and he built the whole outfit around hiring guys the temp agencies won't touch. That's not charity. His son is 9 years into 11 at a facility 3 hours north, and Hollis drives it every other Sunday. And I think the company is a thing he does with his hands, so the other thing has somewhere to go. He hired me 11 days after I walked out the gate. I was 34, and my entire resume was a state ID card, a bus voucher, and a manila envelope with my belt in it. What we do is somebody dies, or gets carted off to assisted living, or the county condemns a place, or a landlord finally gets the eviction to stick, and then somebody has to go inside and take everything out. Every single thing. Down to the floor, down to the studs sometimes, and the family stands in the driveway with their arms crossed and their eyes wet, and they say, "There might be a pearl necklace in there somewhere." And you nod, and you say you'll keep an eye out. $26 an hour. 30 on biohazard days. I'm 47. I've got a plate and 6 screws in my left forearm from a wreck in 2008, and I've got a back that tells me the weather, and I've got a daughter named Nell, who's 26 years old and hasn't picked up the phone since 2022. But we're not there yet. Let me do the houses first, so you understand what I mean when I say a house scared me. That's not a brag. I don't scare easy anymore. And that's a thing that happened to me, like losing your sense of smell. And I didn't ask for it, and I can't put it back. The cat house was my first month. 19 cats the county knew about, and 11 it didn't. And let's start with the floor. There wasn't one. Structurally there was, but you couldn't see it and you couldn't feel it because there was 6 inches of what I'll call a mat laid over the top. Cat waste and hair and sawdust and shredded mail all pressed together over a decade into one continuous sheet, gone spongy, and when you walked on it, your boot sank a ½ inch and came back up with a sound like stepping on a wet mattress. We cut it into strips with utility knives and rolled it like sod. 6 rolls to a room, 90 pounds a roll, and every one of them dripped. The ammonia burned through my cartridges in 40 minutes. That's not me stretching it. You could taste it in the back of your throat, sharp and metal, like biting a battery. Then there was the man in the split level who saved his own scabs. Film canisters, the little gray ones with the black lids. 400 of them in a bureau drawer, each labeled in pencil with a date. I opened one because Rennie dared me. I'm not going to describe 30-year-old skin except to say it doesn't look like anything. It looks like potpourri. It looks like something in a bowl at a dentist's office. And that's worse. There was the yogurt spiral. 91-year-old woman, dead in her recliner, 9 days in July. She'd washed and stacked every yogurt cup she'd eaten since her husband passed in 1984. Built into a spiral that started in the corner of the spare room, went around the walls twice, and ended in a column that came up to my chest. Thousands. And they were clean, spotless. Whatever was wrong with her brain, some part of it was still trying so hard. There was the bottle house. Guy out by the county line couldn't make it down the hall to the bathroom anymore, so he used bottles. Gatorade, mostly. juice jugs when he could get them. 900 and change, capped, lined along the baseboard of every room 3 deep like wainscot, and they ran clear to amber to dark tea, depending how old. And the sun came through the front window and lit up the whole row like a church. There was the gravy. That's Rennie's word, and there's no better one. It's what pools under a person who's been down a while, in a warm room, and it goes through carpet and pad and subfloor and into the joists, and once it's in the joist you're not cleaning, you're doing carpentry. There was the fridge we duct taped, shut, and carried out whole, sloshing the whole way down the porch steps. There was the maggot ceiling, which I did not know was possible, and I'd like to go back to not knowing. There was the crawl space with the deer. I'm not doing the deer. You get calloused. Not in a cool way. In an actual medical way, where the skin of you thickens over. Rennie's been at it 8 years, and she eats lunch inside. Sits on a stack of phone books in a full-face respirator. Pulls it up onto her forehead like sunglasses. Eats a turkey sub with a dead man's carpet all around her. She says the first year you gag, the second year you hold your breath, and after that, your body files it under weather. Rennie taught me the real stuff. Hollis taught me the safety and the 11-minute rule. Rennie taught me the rest. Never say junk, say belongings. Even when the family's not there, especially then. A hoard has a grain to it, like wood. Pull with it, and it comes apart clean. Pull against it, and it comes down on your head. And look for the chair. There's always a chair. In the middle of all that, there's one clear seat with a clear little path to it, and a TV tray, and something to look at, because they live there. Nobody gets that about a hoard. Somebody was living in it, right up until they weren't, and they had a favorite spot. And if you find the chair, you find the person. She taught me widowmakers too. She's got a scar on her scalp from one, and she'll make you find it with your fingers if you're not taking her seriously. So, that's the crew. Hollis with his clipboard and his bad hip and his 98-cent coffee. Rennie with her turkey sub. And me, and Nell, who I'll get to. Before Hollis, I was not a good man, and I don't have a reason for it, which is the part people can't stand. No war, no bottle, no needle. My old man was a bricklayer who worked hard and came home and yelled some, and my mother made a pot roast every Sunday until she couldn't lift the pan anymore, and I grew up in a fine little house with a basketball hoop over the garage. What I had was a thing where somebody would say, "Let's," and I'd say, "Okay, that's it. That's the whole engine." Somebody would say, "Let's go in that house. Let's take that. Let's not call anybody." And there was never 1 second in my life where the word no showed up in my mouth on time. It always got there about 40 minutes late, in the truck, on the way home, when it was free. I ran with a bad crowd starting about 14, and I've spent 30 years describing it that way. Ran with, like I was a passenger. I sold for a while in my 20s. I bounced at a bar called The Rendezvous that got shut down twice and reopened under a cousin's name both times. I did 5 years of cleanout work for a man named Faber, and in 2009 the county came and got me. And I did 4 years. Theft, felony, multiple counts, consolidated. Faber gave me up in about 9 minutes, and I don't even blame him. I did every day of that sentence. No violations inside, none on paper after. And when I came out, I got a job and I kept it. And I have not so much as run a red light in 13 years. And there is a discharge certificate in my wallet, folded in fourths, behind Nell's 4th grade picture. I've had it laminated. I've shown it to people. You should know that about me. You should know I'm a man who carries a receipt. My wife left in 2018, and she was right to. Nell was 18, and she went with her mother, which she was also right to do. And for 4 years she picked up when I called, And for 4 years she has not, and there wasn't a fight. There was no scene, no door slamming. She just quietly stopped, the way you'd stop watering a plant you'd already decided was done. I send her a text on her birthday and at Christmas, just thinking of you, love, Dad. Nothing needy. She doesn't answer, and I don't send a second one. I've got $4,000 in an account she doesn't know about. I don't have a plan for it. I just put money in it, $40 a week. The same way some people light a candle. That's the emotional situation. Now let me tell you about the Prine House. The Prine House is at the end of Fettering Street, where the pavement gives up and turns into that gravel and tar mix. Last house before a tree line. And behind the tree line is a drainage pond that used to be a gravel pit. 2 stories plus a basement, built somewhere around 1910. It's got that shape old farmhouses get when the town grows out around them, like a horse standing in a parking lot. White once, gray now. Porch sagging on the east side because the footing's shot. There's a scorch mark up the north wall. Old. Painted over once and bleeding back through. That brown-black feathering shape a fire makes when it climbs and then gets put out. I look at it for about 2 seconds, and then I stop looking at it. Hollis briefs us in the truck.
Gerald Prine, deceased, 91, found by the mail carrier. No family we can locate, no will we can locate. So this is a county job, which means we get paid in 90 days, if we get paid at all. Bank's got the note. Realtor wants it cleared by Friday. Here's the funny part, and I've been doing this a long time. The title's a mess. There's a Prine on that deed going back to when they started keeping records here, 1890 something. Same initial every transfer. Realtor thinks somebody just kept copying it forward. Place has got history too. Sat vacant a good stretch in the 90s, got used for whatever vacant houses get used for. There's a fire report on it, couple of overdose calls. County had it condemned twice. I don't care what it is. I care that the dumpster's coming at 10 and the pump out truck's at 2. Coop, you're on hand carry. Rennie, assessment. Everybody masked before that door comes open, and nobody goes in the basement till I've seen the joists.
Coop, you grew up around here, right? 2 towns over? You ever been in this one? Kids used to break into it, way I heard. It was the Dare house.
I say no. I say it easy. The way you say no when the answer's no. And I even do the little squint up at the roofline like I'm checking, like I'm being thorough about it. And then I say, nope, doesn't ring a bell. And Rennie says, huh, and goes back to her coffee. And that is the last completely honest exchange I get to have with another living person, and I spent it on that. The dumpster's late, which the dumpster always is. Rennie takes the truck for coffee, which Rennie always does. Hollis is at the end of the driveway on the phone with the county about the pump out, one hand on his hip, standing like a man watching a barn burn. So it's me and the house. I do my walk. That's the actual first step of the job. And I've got a laminated card in my chest pocket with the checklist. Structural, egress, fire load, biohazard, vermin, sharps, utilities. The front door doesn't swing because it never does. 40 years of mail piled against it on the inside. So you get it open about 11 inches, and then you turn your shoulders and go in sideways. And that's the moment. That 11-inch gap and the dark on the far side of it and the air coming out against your face. It's warm air. A packed house holds heat like a compost pile, because that's what it is. I go in. First impression. And it's a horrible thing to think, and I stand by it. This is a good hoard. There's a craftsmanship to it. This isn't somebody drowning in delivery boxes. This is old, laid down over generations, and you can read it standing in the front hall like a road cut. At the bottom, packed hard as clay, newspaper and magazines and paper sacks. Above that, cardboard and cloth gone gray and compressed into one mass. Above that, plastic. And then a thin recent layer, 6 or 8 inches, of the last couple years. Pill bottles, frozen dinner trays, a blood pressure cuff. That's the layer of a man who got old and stopped being able to add much. The hall runs straight back to a kitchen I can see one corner of. On my left, a parlor packed floor to ceiling with a face of belongings like the wall of a mine. There's a chair. I find it in 9 seconds because I know how to look. Orange recliner, clear path to it, TV tray, little Sony with rabbit ears wrapped in foil. On the tray, there's a plate with a fork on it and a glass with an inch of something dried in the bottom. And over my head, on a busted shelf running above the hall, there's a gun safe. The shelf is bracketed into the wall about 7 feet up. 16-inch pine plank with a sag in the middle. You could roll a marble down. On it, front to back, 5-gallon buckets, full. I can tell by how the light doesn't go through them. A stack of encyclopedias, 20 volumes. A pistol safe, cast steel, 60 pounds if it's an ounce. More buckets behind that. The whole shelf is leaning out from the wall about 4 degrees. I see it. I clock it. I say the word out loud in an empty house like an idiot. Widowmaker. And I make a note to pull it from the far end with a hook before anybody works under it. Then I walk under it. I walk under it because the hall's the only way to the kitchen, and the kitchen's on the card, and because some part of a man that never grows up does not seriously believe the world will hit him from above. The kitchen's a disaster in the classic style. Counter's gone. Sink full past the rim. A mound of dishes with a fuzz on them that's got its own topography. Cast iron pan on the stove with something dried to a black disc and cracked like a lake bed. Every cabinet open and packed with jars. Empty. Saved. The floor's got a path worn down to the linoleum pattern, boot width, and everywhere else there's gray fur on it. And there's a rug, which stops me, because there's no reason for a rug in a kitchen like this. A rug is something you have when you care about a floor. And this one's good, or was. Oval braided blue and cream, the kind my grandmother had. And it's the cleanest object in the entire house. No dust on it at all. It's laying past the path. Out in the dead zone nobody's walked in years. And Prine's boot track bends around it in a little half moon. Decades of a man walking around a rug. I toe the corner up. There's a door in the floor. A trap door in an old farmhouse kitchen isn't a paranormal event. Half the places out here have a root cellar or a coal chute or a cistern access. And I've come up out of more than one with webs in my teeth. So I'm not scared. I'm annoyed because a subfloor void is a thing I have to report and a thing that costs Hollis money. I flip the rug back. Hatch, 3 feet square, cut into the boards. Hinges on the far side, and they're bright. That's the first thing that's actually wrong. Everything in this house is 100 years old and gone soft. And those hinges are new. Recessed brass pull. I hook it. It comes up easy, counterweighted, swings past vertical on its own and settles back against the floor, and warm air comes up out of the hole. Stairs going down, framed, built. Somebody made this. So I key my radio and I say, Hollis, got a hatch in the kitchen floor, stairs going down, I'm gonna eyeball it. And I wait, and my radio doesn't do anything. Not even the squelch pop. Battery's fine. I look back down the hall at the front door, still cracked 11 inches, and the daylight coming through it is the exact same color and shape it was when I came in. I pull my phone to text Rennie. It says 11:41 a.m. I go down. 12 steps. I count them on the way down because Hollis drilled that into all of us for when you're carrying a load and you can't see your feet. There's a bulb on a pull chain. It's already on. It's a canning cellar, or it was. Board shelves on 2x4 uprights, running up 3 walls to a ceiling, low enough I duck for the ductwork. Concrete floor with a drain in the middle. The shelves are full of jars. Hundreds. Quarts mostly. Some half-gallons, glass gone that old bluish color. And every one of them is full of liquid. And every one of them has something in it. Most of it's normal, in the sense that it's disgusting. But it's normal. Green beans gone, the color of pond water. Beets that leached out until the liquid's red. And the beets are white. Peaches turned to brown mush, with a skin floating on top. That's 70% of them. The rest have animals in them. Not butchered, not meat. Whole. A jar with a mouse in it, curled, gone gray, and soapy the way things go in fluid. A jar with 3 baby birds, hairless, beaks up. A half-gallon with a possum fetus. And I know what a possum fetus looks like, because I grew up out here and I was the kind of kid who looked at things. And they're labeled masking tape, ballpoint, careful handwriting, a date, and one word. March, 1988. Quick, July, 1989. Not quick, October, 1991. He watched. I read down a shelf, and I don't understand what I'm reading. Or I understand it the way you understand a word in a language you took 2 years of in high school, where the meaning is standing right behind you and won't come around front. On the far wall, there's the taxidermy. 11 pieces. Fox, bobcat, 3 raccoons, squirrels, a great horned owl, and a deer head with no antlers, which is a thing you don't see. All mounted on plaques. All at the same height. All facing out into the room. They're bad. My uncle did taxidermy, and I know what good work looks like. These are bad the way a kid's drawing of a horse is bad. The eyes are set too far forward on everyone, both facing front, like a person's. The mouths are wrong. The fox is smiling, and foxes can't. The shape isn't there, and somebody made it happen anyway with wire and thread, and it took work. They've all got their front paws folded down in front of them, all 11, like they're waiting on grace. And down at the end of that shelf, there's a shovel leaned in the corner with a broken handle, spliced and wrapped in electrical tape. Black tape, wound, in that lazy way where you double back on yourself at the ends. I look at it a long time, and then I stop looking at it. The smell down here isn't the smell upstairs. Upstairs is the hot compost thing. Down here it's cold and sweet, and it's fruit, that heavy cider smell off a windfall apple tree in September. So thick I taste it through the respirator, and my respirator's rated for this, and it should not be getting through. There's dust on the concrete outside the drain, that fine gray fur, and it's got prints in it. Boot prints, which is fine, that's prine. That's a man who came down here, except the heel's wrong. There's a chunk missing out of the outside of the right heel, a bite about the size of a quarter, and it prints as a little gap in the tread. I've got that. I've had that in every pair of boots I've owned since I was 15, because I walk on the outside edge of my right foot. Hollis calls it my signature. I stand there with one foot lifted like a horse, looking at the bottom of my own boot, and I do the thing where you laugh at yourself out loud in an empty room to prove you're normal, and it comes out of me sounding like somebody else, and I turn around to go up the stairs. There's a rug on the floor. There was not a rug on the floor. I came down 12 steps and stood on that concrete and looked right at the drain. Now there's a braided oval, blue and cream, laying over the spot where the drain was. Here's what a body actually does, and it's not what the movies say. There's no chill up the spine. What happens is your hands go cold and your mouth floods with spit, and you get an urgent, stupid, animal need to check something with a number on it. 11:41 a.m. I watch it long enough that a minute has to pass. I count to 120 out loud with my eyes on the screen. 11:41 a.m. I go up. 12 steps. The hatch is closed. I push, and it doesn't move, and it's not latched. It's weighted. There's something on top of it. I put my shoulder in, and I get a half-inch. And above me, something shifts and settles with a slow, granular slide, like a sack of sand tipping. And I stop, because I know that sound. And I know that if I pop this, and a horde face comes down on me in a stairwell, that's the whole story right there. So I come back down, and I stand in a cellar with 11 animals with their hands folded and 400 jars of things somebody did something to, and I look at the rug, and I lift it. Another hatch. Same size, same bright hinges, same brass pull that swings past vertical and settles. You want to know why I go down? I've had a long time with that question. I go because standing still has never once worked for me. Because when my father left, I cleaned the garage. Because my first week out, I painted my mother's entire house, inside and out, in 4 days. And she stood in the driveway not knowing what to say to me. Because the only thing I've ever done with a bad feeling is find a physical task and go at it until my hands hurt. I go because down is a direction, and directions can be worked. 12 steps. This one's not a basement. It's a room. Drywall, taped and mudded, never painted, 20 by 30. Drop ceiling, fluorescent tubes, with half of them out and buzzing. It's full of people. I go down on one knee, straight reflex. I put myself behind a stack of something like I'm ducking a shot, and I stay there breathing into my mask, making a sound I'd be embarrassed about if there were anybody to hear. They don't move. After a while, I get up and get closer, and I understand their figures. Mannequin type. Except mannequins are smooth and hollow, and these are neither. Wax, I figure, and my brain is doing its best. They've got that quality, a little translucence at the fingers and the ears where light gets into them. Standing in rows facing the same way, 40 of them, men and women, all of them naked. And I'll use the technical phrase because it's the least crazy way to say it. They're anatomically correct. All of it, not just the obvious. The wrinkle on the back of a knuckle, the way a shoulder blade sits under skin, moles, real hair, set in follicle by follicle, everywhere hair goes. And I start doing the math on how many hours that is, and I can't finish it. Their eyes are closed. Every one. There's a bench along the back wall with tools laid out, and I know shop tools, and these aren't. Dental picks, a leather roll of little hooked needles, a scale, a stack of index cards in careful ballpoint, and names beside them. Marjorie, Kenneth, little Sam, Sarah. And I'm walking the rows now, doing my job, God help me, doing an assessment, and I get to the third row, and there's a man with a scar on his left forearm. Surgical scar, clean line with the crosshatch of old staples on either side, running from just below the elbow crease down toward the wrist. And there's a low ridge under the skin along it where a plate would sit. I put my sleeve up next to it. They don't match. That's not what I'm saying. It's not the same scar. It's the same scar 6 weeks later than mine ever was. Mine went white in 2010 and stayed white. This one's still pink. And 2 rows down, there's a girl, 19 or so, with a chipped front tooth, upper left. Chipped on the diagonal, which is how they go when it's a fall and not a fight. Her mouth is open a little. She's the only one whose mouth is open. I put my hand on her shoulder before I decide to, and it isn't cold. Wax is cold. This is room temperature. And room temperature on something shaped like a girl doesn't read as room temperature. It reads as the ugly cousin of body heat. And it gives under my thumb and comes back. I take my hand away, and there's a print left in her, and it stays. There's a rug at the end of the row. 12 steps. Close. That's the whole floor. Rolling racks like a dry cleaner's, rack after rack running back into a dark I can't put a distance on. Every garment's on a hanger, and every hanger's got a paper tag on a string, and every tag has a name and 2 dates. I walk it because I can't not. The clothes get older as I go. Polyester to wool to something coarse, with hand stitching. Collars change shape 4 or 5 times. There's 20 feet of mourning black in a row, and the tags in that section all share a second date. Then they start getting smaller. Little corduroy overalls, with the knees worn through and mended and worn through again. A christening gown, yellowed, with 2 dates 11 days apart. And the sound in there is the worst part. And it's nothing. It's the sound of a closet. Hangers touching. That little wooden click all around me, coming from aisles I'm not walking in. Halfway down, I find a jacket I know. Green canvas, quilted lining, 1 cuff burned. That's a Carhartt I had at 19, and I burned that cuff leaning over a barrel fire behind the rendezvous, and I wore it like that for 2 more winters because I thought it looked good. The tag on it says a name that isn't mine and a date I don't want to look at twice. I make myself say out loud that there were 9 million of those jackets, and I say it in the voice I use on the phone with the bank. 12 steps. Bedroom. 1 room. Big. Wallpaper. With little yellow flowers. And there are beds in it. Not stacked. Arranged. In a grid. Aisles between them wide enough to walk and turn. Maybe 60 beds. All made. Covers turned back on the same side at the same angle, like a hotel expecting a bus. Every mattress has a shape pressed into it. All the shapes are the same size. There's a lamp lit beside every one. Cloth shades. None of them plugged into anything. I check 3, and then I stop checking. There's a glass of water on every nightstand, full to the same line, and the air moves in there. Not a draft. It moves the way air moves in a room where people are sleeping. That slow, soft push and pull you can feel on the back of your hand if you hold still. And the little tassels on the lampshades are going in and out, all 60 of them, together. It's cold. It's so cold in there that my breath is showing, and there's frost on the inside of the window that's set into a wall that can't have a window, and the beds are made up with nothing but sheets. No blankets. Not 1 blanket in 60 beds. I stand in that doorway a long time, and I do not go in past the doorway. The rug's right at my boot. I take it. 12 steps, and this floor's on fire. I come down into heat like opening an oven, and there's a room, a parlor, wallpaper curling off the walls in long tongues, and the whole ceiling is rolling with flame, orange and black, moving, alive, going in that slow churn fire does when it's got a room to itself. But it isn't moving. That's the thing I can't make my eyes hold. It's rolling, and it's completely still. Both. The way a photograph of a wave is doing something and isn't. The smoke's standing in the air in banks. There's an ash floating a foot off the floor that hasn't come down. And there's no sound. A room fire is the loudest thing you will ever stand next to. This is quiet as a church. The heat's real. My eyebrows are cooking. I can feel the skin on my forehead tightening the way it does at a bonfire when you get too close and your body starts filing a complaint. There's a man standing in the corner. He's burning, and he's standing, and he's got his arms down at his sides, and he's looking at me. He's not doing anything else. He's not screaming or reaching or coming toward me. He's just standing in the corner of a room that's on fire, facing the stairs, like a man who's been waiting on the porch a long time and has stopped expecting anybody. I smell naphtha. Under the smoke, sharp and sweet. Lighter fluid, The cheap kind, the yellow can. I'm going to be honest about what I do here. I don't say anything to him. I don't ask him anything. I find the rug, which is laying on the floor in the middle of a burning room, not burning. And I get it up and I get that hatch open and I go down and I do not look back at him. 12 steps. This one's a car. I come down the stairs into a room the size of a 2-stall garage, and there's a car parked in the middle of it, a maroon Buick, and I know the car, and I've known the car since about the 2nd floor down, but I've been doing a real professional job of not knowing it. It's running, exhaust curling up off the pipe, windows fogged from the inside, and there's a shape in the back seat, a small one, up on its knees on the bench facing backward out the rear window, which is where a kid sits when they're watching for somebody to come back. The rear window's got handprints all over the inside of it. Little ones. Dozens. Layered over each other, going up and coming back down. A whole record of it. The way a window gets when somebody's been at it a long time. She's got her hand flat on the glass right now. There's a rug on the concrete beside the driver's door. In every version of this I get to tell later, I go to the car. I want that so bad, my teeth hurt. I take the rug. 12 steps, and the last one isn't there, and I come down onto a floor that's 8 inches lower than my foot expects, and my knee takes it all wrong. Furnace room. No bulb. Concrete. Low. And the only light is the fire in an old octopus furnace in the middle of it. And the fire's the wrong color. It's the color the inside of your eyelids goes when you press on them. That deep, muddy red with green crawling at the edge of it. And it doesn't light anything. It just sits there being visible without giving anything up. And every surface in that room stays dark. The ductwork comes off the top of the furnace in those big, round arms. And there's something crouched over it with its back to me. It's too big for the room. It's crouched, folded up on itself, and even folded up its back is against the ceiling, and its shoulders are wider than the furnace. And the room is not big enough to hold it, and the room is holding it anyway. The corners of the room are farther away than they were. It's warming its hands. It knows I'm there. It doesn't turn around for a while. And that's on purpose, and I understand it's on purpose, and understanding it doesn't help. Then it comes apart. That's the only way to put it. It doesn't stand up. It unfolds in stages, the way a carpenter's rule opens. Joint after joint after joint. More joints than an arm gets, and each one makes a sound like a knuckle going. It goes up and up, until its head is against the joists, and then it bends its neck sideways to fit, all the way sideways, ear to shoulder, and it stays bent like that. Its skin is gray and layered and papery in overlapping rings, like the outside of a wasp nest. In places the layers have peeled back, and there's something moving underneath, slow, in a pattern. It has no face. There's a head, and there's a place on the head where a face goes, and the paper just runs across it uninterrupted, and it's looking at me. Completely. More than anybody has ever looked at me. I can feel it going over me the way you'd run your thumb down a page, and it isn't finding out about me. It already knows. It's checking the work. It smells like a dryer vent, hot lint and something scorched. Then a seam opens across the front of the head, all the way across, ear to ear, horizontal, and it's got far too many teeth in it. And they're small and even and human. And there's hundreds of them, and it opens that seam wide, and it holds it open, and it does not make a sound. That's the smile. That's what a smile is, when it's got nothing behind it. And then it says my name, and it says it in my voice, and it doesn't come from the seam. It comes from inside my own throat, from behind my own teeth, and I feel my jaw move to make it.
Cooper, you've walked all the way down through it, and you still haven't said one of them out loud. So, we'll do that now.
I try to run. I turn and there's no stairs behind me. There's wall, and I go into it with both hands and I claw at it like a dog at a door, and I break 2 fingernails down to the bed and I feel it happen and I keep going. And it lets me. It waits. It's got its neck bent sideways and it waits with the patience of something that has never once been in a hurry. And when I finally stop and put my forehead on the concrete and start making a noise I've never made before, it comes over and crouches down next to me. Close. Close enough that I can hear the layers of it moving. And it starts at the top.
The jars. Say it.
I'm 14, and the Prime place has been vacant 9 years, and it's the Dare house, and it's me and Bug Marchetti and Petey Straub, and we've got a shovel with a broken handle that I spliced myself with black tape out of my old man's truck. We start with a possum in the crawl space, and I'm going to say the true thing, which is that Bug threw up and Petey stopped coming after the second summer, and I kept going for 4 more years, alone. I got a system, I got a spot in the cellar, and I got quiet about it, and I learned exactly how long it took, and there was a stretch around 16 where it was the only thing that made me feel like the inside of my head had a floor in it. Cats from Fettering and from 2 streets over. Somebody's beagle in 1991 that had a collar on it, and I took the collar off first, and I've never told anybody that part until right now. That's the jars. That's the quick and the not quick. Somebody kept a record of me, and I don't know who, and it doesn't matter who. The taxidermy's what I tried to do after, when I was 17 and something in me got scared of me, and I read a library book and I thought if I could put one back together it would count for something. That's why they're bad. That's why the eyes are wrong. A 17-year-old with a book and a leather punch, trying to unring a bell.
The girl with the tooth.
Sarah Voigt, August, 1999. And I'm 20, and I'm selling, and the Prime place is where we do it because it's empty, and it's at the end of the street, and there's no neighbor on the tree line side. She's 19. She's got a chipped front tooth from a bike wreck when she was 11, and she tells me that inside of 10 minutes of meeting me, because she's the kind of person who explains herself to strangers, I sell her something I know is cut with something, and I know it because a guy told me and I sold it anyway, 6 of them, because I'd already paid for the batch. She goes down around 2 in the morning in the upstairs bedroom, and the room clears out like somebody pulled a plug. And I'm the one who says, we can't call. I'm the one. Not Bug, not the other guys. Me, standing in that hallway, saying it out loud, saying if anybody calls anything, we all go away for a long time. We put her in the back of Petey's Cavalier, and we drove her 4 miles out, and we laid her in the ditch on County 12, past the curve where people take it too fast, and it went down as a hit and run that never got solved. And her mother put a white cross out there, and it's still there. And I have driven past it maybe 2,000 times. Her mouth is open on that floor because the last thing she did was try to say something to me, and I was already going down the stairs. The 40 of them, the wax, all of them with their eyes shut. That's every person who was in that house that night, and every person who has been through that house since. Somebody made a study of all of us. Somebody sat with those hooked needles and put in the hair, one at a time, on all of us, and got my forearm at 6 weeks healed, because 6 weeks after that wreck is when I stood in that house again.
The clothes. The cold room.
2001 through 2006, I did cleanouts for a man named Faber who bought foreclosures. I was the one who went in first. And every time a family stood in a driveway and said, there might be a necklace in there somewhere, I said I'd keep an eye out. There was always a necklace. There's always a necklace. There's a wedding band in a jelly jar in a kitchen drawer. There's war medals in a shoebox. There's a coin collection under a floor register. And I found all of it, every time, because I'm good. Because I've always been good at this, and I put it in my jacket, and I came out and I looked those people in the face and I told them there was nothing. Hundreds of houses. I don't have a number, and that's the honest answer, and it's worse than a number. And when they finally came for me, it was for 11 of them. 11 out of hundreds, because 11 families kept a photograph of Grandma wearing the thing. That's the whole case. That's what 4 years was for. I have spent 13 years believing that squared it. The clothes are what I threw in a dumpster after I'd been through the pockets. Every tag is a name I never learned. And the cold room is the winter of 2004, when I was renting the Prine house out myself, room by room, cash weekly, to people who had nowhere. Faber didn't know. 19 people in a condemned house with no furnace, and I took $240 a week out of there. And I told them the boiler guy was coming Tuesday, every Tuesday, for 11 weeks. A woman named Ruthie Sandoval died in the front upstairs bedroom in February, and a man whose name I genuinely never got died in the same room 9 days later, and both of them went out as exposure, and both of them were in beds I put in there. No blankets on that floor. 60 beds and no blankets. Somebody was being funny.
And the fire.
2008. Faber gives me $8,000 to make the Prine house go away, and I take it, and I'd have done it for 2, and nobody had to talk me into it, and I have never once said that last bit out loud to anybody. Yellow can of lighter fluid, because I was in a hurry, and it was in the truck. Up the north wall, in the stairwell, along the parlor baseboard. It didn't take, and for 16 years I called that luck. It burned the parlor, and it burned up the north wall, and it went out on its own, because the house is that packed and packed things smother, and the fire department wrote it up as a squatter's cooking fire, because there was a squatter. There was a squatter, Tomas. That's all I ever knew, first name. Because he was in and out of that house for 2 years, and I'd seen him, and I'd stepped over his stuff, and I did not check the attic. I did not check one single room. I put down the fluid, and I lit it, and I drove to a bar in the next county, and I sat there with my hands shaking, so bad I had to use 2 of them on the glass. They found him in April, when they went in to board it. Under the eave, in the crawl, and the wreck was that same night, driving home. That's the plate and the 6 screws. That's the scar. I hit a culvert doing 70 and walked away from it, and I have told that story 100 times as a funny one. He was standing in the corner with his arms down. He wasn't reaching for me. He'd stopped expecting anybody a long time ago, and I'm the reason.
The car. Say her name.
No. I say no to it. Down on the floor of that room, with my fingers bleeding, and that thing crouched over me with its head bent sideways, I say no, and it's the first honest no I've said in my life, and I mean it with everything I've got left. It waits. It doesn't threaten me. That would be something. It just waits, and the waiting goes on so long that the fire in the furnace burns down and comes back up, and somewhere in there I understand that it can do this forever, and that forever has already started. Nell, she's 4. It's the summer of 2004, and I'm supposed to have her Saturday to Sunday, and I bring her with me to Fettering Street because I'm collecting rent, and then I don't come out. 6 hours. Maroon Buick, running, air on, and I go in that house at 11 in the morning, and I come out at 5, and there's 100 handprints on the inside of that back window, going up and coming down, up and down, and she doesn't cry when I get in. That's what I remember. She doesn't say anything at all. She just gets down off her knees and sits in her seat and puts her belt on herself at 4 years old and looks out the side. And I bought her an ice cream on the way home and told her that was our secret, and she nodded. And she's kept it for 22 years. That's why she doesn't call. It was never the divorce. And then I ask it when. It knows exactly what I mean. And it doesn't make me say that one, which is the only mercy in the whole building.
11 this morning. The shelf in the hall. You saw it. You said the word out loud. Then you walked under it, and the safe came off the end, and it caught you at the base of the skull, and you were gone before your knees found out. Buckets after. Books after that. Rennie went at that pile with her bare hands, and wouldn't wait for the hooks. 11 minutes. Broke 3 fingers doing it, and won't know until tonight. Hollis is on the floor with you. Right now, doing compressions on a man with no top to his spine, because he's a corpsman, and he can't stop, and he'll be doing them in his head at 3 in the morning for the rest of his life. You've been down here about 4 seconds.
Here's what I don't understand, and I say it out loud, and my voice sounds like a kid's. I say, I did 4 years, every day of them. I didn't take a deal that shaved it, and I didn't fight it. And I sat down in a room with a judge and read a letter out loud with my hands shaking. I say, 13 years since. Not a violation, not a ticket, not $1 out of one house that wasn't mine. 13 years of showing up at 6 in the morning to carry a dead stranger's furniture out to a dumpster. And I've been good at it. And I've been kind to those families. And I found a wedding band in a floor register in March. And I handed it to a woman in a driveway. And I watched her face. I say, I paid. There's a paper in my wallet that says, I paid. Doesn't that count for something? And it puts its face down close to mine, that blank paper front of its head, close enough that I can feel the heat coming off it. And it holds that seam of teeth open, and it lets me hear the answer in my own voice, from behind my own teeth.
It counts. Every day of it counted. Take the paper out. Look at what's printed on it. It's a jewelry box. It's 11 jewelry boxes and a coin album. That is the entire debt anybody ever came to collect from you, and you paid it in full. And you have carried the receipt in your wallet for 13 years and shown it to people like it covers the building. Nobody ever charged you with 1 floor in this house. You didn't get away with it, Cooper. You got billed later.
So, I ask for one thing. I'm not proud of the way I ask. I'm on my belly on a concrete floor with my forehead in the dust, asking a thing with no face if my daughter can be all right. And I'm saying it fast, all in a rush, like if I get it out quick enough, it'll count. And it goes still. And it seems to consider it. And that's the cruelest thing it does all night. Because there's a second in there where I have hope.
She is. She has been since the day she stopped picking up. That was the one that worked. That was the thing that fixed it. She'll hear on Thursday. She'll take the afternoon off, and she'll drive out, and she'll stand at the back of the room with her arms crossed, and she will not cry. And she'll wait for something to come up in her, and it won't. And she'll drive home and get takeout and sleep 9 hours. And she'll feel guilty about that for about a year. And then she'll stop, and she'll be 40, and somebody will ask about her father, and she'll say, he was around when I was little. And she'll change the subject and mean nothing by it. You asked if she'd be all right. She's been all right. You were the thing she got past.
So, that's where I am. I'm on my floor. Turns out you get one. Turns out the floors go all the way down, and every one of them was built by somebody who did what I did, in that house, in their own way. Prine was the first one, and mine is being furnished right now, whether I look at it or not. It's the parlor at the front of the house on Fettering Street. All of them are, really. Same room, done different ways. Mine's got the shovel with the taped handle leaning in the corner. Mine's got a maroon Buick. Mine's got a white cross out on County 12 that I can see through the window even though there's no road there. And here's the thing about it. It doesn't hurt. Nobody's poking me. There's no fire, and no wheel, and no pit. And I want to say that plain, because I think people expect that. And the actual arrangement is worse. The arrangement is that I get to keep doing the only thing I know how to do. I clean it. Every day, or whatever a day is. I get in there, and I work with the grain, and I strip that room down to the studs, and I get it beautiful. And I can see the pencil marks where the framers laid it out in 1910, and I stand there sweating and proud with a broom in my hand. And then I turn around. Sometimes I hear somebody coming down, 12 steps, through the cold room, through the fire, and I stop, and I listen, and I get this stupid hot feeling in my chest, because part of me thinks it's Rennie every single time. Part of me thinks she went at that pile with her bare hands and broke 3 fingers doing it, and she'd come down here after me too, if she could find the hatch. It's never her. It's some new one. 90 days dead, still in the paper suit, standing in my doorway looking at my shovel and my car and my window. And you can watch the sentence come together behind their eyes. God, what was wrong with this person? I always beat them to it. Same thing every time. Because Rennie taught it to me, and it's the only piece of her I got to keep. I say, don't call it junk. It's belongings. Then I find them a bucket, and I sit them down, and I ask them what they did up top, and they tell me it was an accident, or they tell me it was a long time ago, or they tell me they did the work and they've been good for years, and I let them get it all out. I don't rush them. I've got nothing but room. Then I point at the floor, at the little braided oval laying there by their boot that wasn't there a minute ago, blue and cream, clean as the day it was made. And I tell them the truth, which is that they should take their time. There's no hurry. It goes down a long way.